the whole Rastafari family that's present here, and he does that naturally. And Master Ceremony, Jaharis is going to introduce the young Aliyah.
Yes, as well the singers that the players on the instruments. Let me take this occasion to welcome beautiful brethren, and the time that we waited was worth it because we were sure that you were on the way. Someone said, don't wait for Jesus to come out of the sky, but we know that Yogiraj will be here, and he is in person. And I must give thanks continually because the brethren kept saying, Haile Selassie. Now, Selassie Street or Selassie Cathedral or whatever, Selassie means Trinity. But there's one Haile Selassie the first. There are also other people who are called Haile Selassie. But there's one Haile Selassie the first. So it is indeed a glorious and momentous occasion that we welcome Gurunath to be with us, to share the energy. Because, like I said earlier, it's all about energy. His Majesty himself has endorsed this, that, like I said, unless one tries to do more than one can, one will never do all that one possibly can. And it's the enthusiasm that stimulates the energy. And such enthusiasm is going to be shared with us by someone who had the opportunity to share in presence of His Majesty. And by the way, Haile Selassie means power of the Trinity. So a lot of people say, Selassie, it's kind of disrespectful, but they, you can't tell people that because they figure they know. People said they met the emperor and they know they should bow and they decided they weren't going to bow and they eventually had to bow, so it's just a thing in life. Now, like I said, it's a timely and momentous occasion because the emperor has made a lot of pronouncements regarding Africa, and in this special time, it is very critical for us to acknowledge the emperor dealt with all the problems that Africa faces and all the solutions. So it's just left up to the tardy allies. So without further ado, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking because the guest speaker is here. So I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself, sir.
Before I introduce
Okay, can everybody see?
Yeah.
So I ask your permission to sit down and talk. Can I sit down? Because if I stand up, you'll see me better. But if you can see me sitting down, I prefer to sit down. Now, welcome in my heart to all of you. And I had the good fortune and good opportunity to meet the great spiritual being called Haile Selassie. He was called the conquering lion of Judah. Conquering lion of Judah. So this was a great opportunity, and I felt very humbled and I felt very joyous at the same time to have met him. This was in the year 1981. I think I mentioned it in my book. I don't know exactly. Was it 81 or 82? Not 85, 82. And that time I was very young and he was in it, nearing his 90s or something. But he was, he had expressed desire to see a yogi from India. And that time I was in London and I was teaching near the great Savoy, where His Majesty was staying in Portland Street.
Wow.
And he was a guest of the Queen Mother, not this Queen Elizabeth, but her mother. So he was the royal guest, and there are many stories which are, this is coming in the way, so no need. And so he expressed this desire, and I was called there, and so I went to meet him at his residence at Portland Street, which was just opposite the Savoy Hotel in London, where my grandfather and grandmother used to stay in the Savoy. Just it's a coincidence, and it was a great experience to meet such a spiritual being. He was not an ordinary being, he was a spiritual master.
Oh, boom.
And his work was very difficult because he took on a lot of karma, a lot of hardships from the people of Ethiopia. His souls had to pass through these tribulations, they had to pass through trials to get to the eternal heavens, to get to the eternal space, the space of God. So he was preparing the space of God for not only the people of Ethiopia but people all over the world. And therefore, when I met him, and he had, of course, all of you know that this is a divine relationship which happened between the King Solomon. King Solomon was the son of King David, and King Solomon, he married the Queen of Sheba. They in Africa, Queen of Sheba in Ethiopia, Addis Ababa. She was very accomplished in the art of spiritual science too. And they have mentioned her as the Queen Sheba. Now Shiva is the Lord, the great Lord Mahadev in India. It is said that they used to travel by the Silk Route, and she got all her spiritual knowledge from India. When she visited India, there was a constant trade between Ethiopia and India in those times. This was before Egypt.
In the Kush.
Yes, via the Hindu Kush. And a lot of spiritual knowledge was given to Ethiopia. The spiritual knowledge was from India to Ethiopia, the interaction. She was a very spiritual lady, and she was accomplished in horse riding, in warfare, in arts, in music. Very, very highly accomplished queen, a very legendary queen, and she had to be a divine person to marry the King Solomon. And they mentioned in our ancient text somewhere in India that she is from the house of Shiva. The house of Shiva means the same house which we are from. The house of Shiva. The people who worship the good Lord.
Shiva.
Yeah, Shiva. And this knowledge which was with Ethiopia, are you all understanding what I'm saying?
Yes.
I. So the spiritual. That's good.
Guru.
That is the boost we need. Now, the Egyptians did not have this knowledge, spiritual knowledge. They got this spiritual knowledge from Ethiopia, because Ethiopia was more advanced than Egypt. Now Americans say, oh, Egyptology, this and that. Nonsense. It did not begin from Egypt, it began from Ethiopia on the continent. Ethiopia had a fine irrigation system, a fine town and planning system at that time, which was really a very long time ago, BC, about 200, 300, 800 years BC. Moses' time, even before the time of Moses, the Ethiopian culture was one of the highly civilized cultures in the world, along with the Indus Valley civilization and the Saraswati civilization of India. And so this system of planning and drainage and the lock system of the ships, which you could raise the ship by taking the water higher and higher, was first. This system was already found in Ethiopia before the Egyptians did anything. Egyptians were in any case in the desert. Ethiopians had more opportunity to be by the sea, by the ocean. So this spiritual knowledge, she was they talk a lot about Cleopatra. You have heard of Cleopatra? Cleopatra was a very intelligent and
She's the daughter of Sheba.
the daughter, not daughter, the great, but it is Sheba who was the one who gave the knowledge to the Egyptians. And it was so long time ago that now she's become a legendary queen. They don't think that is anybody real a person as Sheba, but it's historically proven that there was a queen, and it is a historical fact that she was there. And the spiritual knowledge went from India to Ethiopia, and Ethiopia gave this knowledge to Egypt. And from Egypt now, the people in America are doing, research with their big cameras. They have cameras, if you see, with big long lenses like this, and they click it and the camera goes like a gun. But they must go further. They don't go beyond Egypt. So I have told them that they must do their main research in Ethiopia, which is the source of the knowledge in Africa. Anyway, going back to that, I met His Majesty, and he was there sitting, and he rose and he wished me, and I also did my bow to him, like we have to do.
I'm sorry, I missed the last two sentences that you said. Could you kindly repeat it? The last two sentences, I didn't hear you so well.
Well, I was ushered in to this great Portland Street where His Majesty was staying. At that time, I do not know. Some people had said that His Majesty had already gone. He had taken his samadhi. He had died. That was the rumors. But some people, the Rastafarian people and other people, that feel that he came back from his body, because I met him in 1982 and he was declared dead in 1970, sometime in 1970, right? 1975. And I met him in 1982. That means, like the Christ, he has either risen from the dead. Woo! So this is a thing which it's a very spiritual thing. I won't want to go into this. I'm going to leave it to you to contemplate and see what this great master had done. And that he was there and he expressed to have a fire ceremony.
Nyahbinghi.
So that time he was nearing 100. He was well over 90, and one hand was not working, but the other hand. So when we did the fire ceremony, he has to put it on his thumb like this, over here. And when we said Swaha, he used to put it in. But he was very fit, and of course he was a royal person. He had to look like a lion. He looked like a lion, very leonine and very majestic figure. And so, along with His Majesty was the Queen. Her Majesty was also there. Her daughter was there, and her son was there. Have you heard of His Majesty's son? His name, his grandson? Zara Yaqub. And when I met him, he was almost 7 feet tall, very tall. And he used to come to India. He was studying in India, in the National Defense Academy in India. Yeah. So he was a very, very impressive figure. Now, His Majesty wanted to know the connection between India and Africa. So I told them, Your Majesty, 5,000 years ago, 3,102 years BC, that's 5,000, that's before Moses, before Abraham, and this is the time of Lord Krishna, 3000 BC. When Krishna went looking for the wives of 5 of his brothers, his cousins had to be married. And one of the brothers, who was called Bhim, he was married to Hidamba. She was from the Congo, and near about that place and she was connected with Ethiopia, and she was married to Beam at that time. So he was very interested. So he asked me for the record, so I showed him that in the Gita, and I showed him some research. He gave research references, very, very intrigued. But they say in India that if you go to the Congo, that the great King Mahandata did such a great fire ceremony that some of the mud or ash which is in the Congo is still like the ash of a great fire ceremony. If somebody goes to the Congo and takes the mud, it will be grayish like ash. So they're saying that thing lasted for 100 years. I don't know whether it was a forest fire or a fire ceremony that they did. But these are old stories. So we were connected to Ethiopia. India was connected to Ethiopia in the sense that there was a marriage alliance. The next marriage alliance was done in South America. The next brother was married to Ulupi. She was from South America, and so on and so forth. So he was very interested in the fire ceremony, and the Queen Mother, Her Majesty, we needed some butter to pour, so she herself knew how to make from butter she made the clarified butter. She knew the Indian traditions. Her daughter-in-law, she was pregnant with child, so she told her, now you cannot stay here, you go away during the fire ceremony because the child cannot attend unless it's of a certain age, because some powerful mantras are said. So she and a lady in waiting, they went out, and then the fire ceremony, and she made it herself. She made you know what is clarified butter? You heard of ghee? You guys eat ghee? Clarified butter, that's butter, ghee, which you pour. So this was a very, very interesting situation, and then we spoke on some very deep topics about meditation. He was interested in Kriya Yoga and in meditation. Can you hold it to the side?
Yes.
Yes.
Did he ask you about the deep breathing ceremony?
Yes, the deep. He asked about the Kriya Yoga, the breathing ceremony. So that also I gave him, and the Soham. And he was very, very happy because he practiced it, and he used to get very good sleep after that. He told me so. And then he invited me to come every weekend from India to London to be a guest. So I said, Your Majesty, leave alone the teaching. If I come every year, I'll die of jet lag. Because the time I'm recovered, I'll have to go back and then come again. So I did go after that, but I didn't have such a deep meeting. But the first time was a very, very wonderful, memorable meeting, and I have mentioned this in my book, Wings to Freedom. I mentioned it in my Wings to Freedom. So his spirit is still here with all of you, and God bless you all, and may you practice the path that you tread. And he did like the breathing and the Kriya Yoga. So that is what I have come to say, and I am a master of Kriya Yoga, and I teach Kriya Yoga.
Okay, I praise it. Brother man, we want to open the floor at some point where everyone can ask questions, but I think I'm going to be first.
Yes, question. I'll open up for questions.
One thing I want to ask you, the Ganges River.
Could we hear his question?
Stand up so we can
Yeah.
hear.
Okay, the Ganges River, I'm told was named after an Ethiopian king. Is there a credence to that?
It could be possible because there were connections, and when they came as guests, when he came as a guest, an honorary guest from Ethiopia, the king of that place could have said that this would be named, because there are many names to the Ganges. You know, she's known as Alaknanda, she's known as Bhagirathi, known as many different names.
Book of Esther refers to an Ethiopian king that had dominion on India.
So there must be some name to that. I will find out what the names are.
And another question I want, pertinent to what you said, from your book and from your YouTube. Has there been anyone challenging you or calling you a madman for saying that you met a man who is supposedly dead? Because no gravesite was ever found for the man who has been to every funeral of every president from that time.
You see, his question was that when I wrote in my book that I met His Majesty Haile Selassie in 1982, his question was, did anybody challenge you because he was already dead in 1975, and or did anybody want to question you on that? So I felt that the Rastafarian community had a great sense of awe. It was surprise, and they did not challenge because they knew and they felt that His Majesty had the power to resurrect. You understand? And those Rastas who wanted to challenge did not have the courage, because they knew that that His Majesty, after all, he is from the house of Solomon and of the house of Sheba, and this is a very sacred thing. He is a divine being, and a divine being can do anything. And I think you see, the mind of different people are different. So the mind in Africa is more open. They are not closed. They are not inhibited. They do believe, yes, a spirit can come, an angel can appear, Christ can bless you, Haile Selassie can meet you. As long as you have that hope, He can come and meet you. You can feel His presence. You can feel Him talking through me. So once you open up your heart, nothing is impossible. Nothing is impossible. God is not impossible. Only the stupid mind is impossible, which keeps tripping over its own doubts. And then ultimately, if the mind keeps doubting, it gets analysis, paralysis, and dies. The moment your mind dies, God appears. God is no mind. God is. And when the mind disappears, God appears. As long as the mind is there, God chooses to be in the background. Because the mind is ego. It's piping up all the time and trumpeting its own glory. I did this and I did that and I went here and I went there. So these are the sort of discussions I had with His Majesty of Ethiopia. And he was very intrigued in the science of yoga, in the science of Kriya Yoga and breathing. And he practiced it. And when he practiced it, he saw the result also. Yeah, because he is a very, very ancient soul, come from the divine spheres. He is not only born in this life, he is tens of thousands and thousands of years old. That soul is tens of thousands and millions of years old.
It's infinity.
Alright, so we open the floor. Anyone would like to have a question?
Yes, anybody who would like.
So, after meeting him, you said he invited you to England?
He invited me to
On the
England.
weekend?
Yes.
So I wanted to know, how many trips did you actually make to England to see him? And,
See, I thoroughly met him only once.
or you actually,
This is the
you
truth.
didn't go to England?
After that, I didn't go to England. And definitely he is such a power that if you invoke him in meditation, he can come. He is more than an ordinary soul. This is the message,
Yeah.
which all of you are aware of. And I went to London many other times, but somehow due to some appointment or something, I was not able to meet him because he himself was busy with his own work. So this,
Go ahead.
yes,
I was going to ask you, what would you consider one of his most important accomplishments? As a matter of the funny thing is, I meant to mention this, that Time magazine or Time book, Great Men of the 20th Century, no mention of the man who buried the League of Nations, which was before the UN, and co-founder of the UN, OAU, and so many good things. And one of the most, Prince of Peace is one of his titles. So, I mean, throughout his whole reign, he has accomplished a lot. What would you consider as being something the most?
you see, I am a spiritual man. So I don't see his material accomplishments. I see his spiritual accomplishments. And like what I am working more in the astral sphere with your emotions and your intuition when you sleep at night or when you're rested or when you meditate, that our work is done on the astral and spiritual realms. The physical world is just the tip of the iceberg. His work I see more done on spiritual realms. And he is still working, he is a divine being. But I was very impressed with one incident, that His Majesty was one of the avant-garde, the forerunners and one of the main establishers of the League of Nations. You see, before the United Nations, we had what is called the League of Nations. But you people were not born, none of us were born that time.
Yes.
Now, in the League of Nations, can you all hear me now at the back? In the League of Nations, he was there, and there's a story about him that one person came and he held a pistol and a revolver. He wanted to shoot him. And His Majesty just turned, he had nothing in his hands, and he just looked at him like this. And that man's hand went down and he dropped the revolver. So that shows the power of the soul. That's a divine soul power. No ordinary person can do that. That is one of the most powerful things. To change within a split second an aggressive person and change him into a docile person, later a friendly person, is, I think, a great miracle. And one of the greatest miracles ever performed on a public platform. So I was very impressed with this. And there are many stories of his which are so ancient, and this thing that my father used to tell me about these things. So don't think that he is not known in India or unknown. Of course, we people are going to a deeper sort of education and all, maybe, but there are people who know what he did and who he was. And certainly one of the great gifts to humanity. He did his work and went, although it appeared that he left certain places undone, or Ethiopia was not properly cared for. But high command, even higher forces than him, God's power, said that certain people have to go through certain surgery. They have to go through certain suffering so that they will become as stronger souls. In our philosophy, in the religion of truth, as I am an existentialist, I am a realist, and according to reality, you can never die. You're not this house of flesh and bone. You're not this house of flesh and bone, which sleeps, decays and dies. You're not this house of flesh and bone, which sleeps, decays and dies. You are immortal consciousness, Lord of the earth and the skies. All of you are this. And the thing with His Majesty, the divine being, he had realized it, you have not. That's the difference. So if you practice, you will also realize that state. You understand? It's very, very important.
One of the things that the Emperor says is that throughout his life, prior to his no one has ever seen him despair. And you know?
Yes.
But one of the things he says he considers that he has done is to make Ethiopian Orthodox Church autonomous from the Copts, the Egyptian connection. You know that history.
Yeah.
So then, I just wondered about the state, if you're aware of the state of, because you know about Ark of the Covenant, Discovery Channel, they're trying to find it and everything. So I'm just wondering about, from your perspective, the spiritual state of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, in the sense that generally religions are just, and it's much talked about, the mystics of ancient times have already shown that they have reached that oneness, which the religions mitigate against. So like you, His Majesty is on that plane, where religion is like irrelevant. But at the same time, he has made, just like Africa. And incidentally, I really want to ask you, because the president made some very serious remarks today, and he's in Africa. And as you know, the emperor is considered the father and unifier of Africa. And he has spoken out to many people. By the way, everyone, the emperor could be considered a terrorist because he supported armed liberation struggle. Gave slavery and money and arms to the liberation movement. like Mandela, who the other day was considered a terrorist. Today,
Yes.
everybody's Malcolm too.
So, sir, how do you feel about Ethiopia, like, spiritual?
I feel that Ethiopia will come up on the world scenario.
Again.
Yeah, because the souls who are there will always be there. They keep changing, They keep changing their outer coats, their bodies. But the inner man is the same. The inner person is always the same. And if you practice spiritual techniques, you can get to spiritual.
And folks, this is what this is all about. Like I told you before, you have to have open minds and minds that are welcoming to good thoughts. Here it is. So now is the time to kick it off in your personal search for self-peace, because that's where it starts.
Yes.
And very good advice.
Earth peace through self-peace. This is one of our vision statements. So we are dedicated to the furthering of human awareness. We are meditated to the furthering of human awareness. We are dedicated to serving humanity as our larger self. And we are devoted to new life awakening for earth peace healing through self-peace healing. Self-peace healing may be done by Kriya Yoga. Yeah. Yes.
Gurunath, I wanted to ask about earth peace through self-peace and the importance of individual spiritual work.
Yes. Individual spiritual work. You see, first we must put our own house in order and then put others' house in order. So if we ourselves don't have peace within, we cannot give others peace. You see? So, yes. Yes.
Thanks for that question. Can you share with the community a certain breathing technique that you share with this practice? Or some kind of technique that helps us?
Well, I'm not going to share, I will share with you a certain breathing technique. But the technique I shared with His Majesty is a very high technique and he's a very high divine soul. I cannot share this with you. Even if I want to, I am bound and limited. I cannot give a PhD course to a kindergarten person. Even if I do give this little child some technique, they see the child has torn the paper, which is fine for him. But if you tear it, they say, hey, don't tear the paper, that's knowledge. But the child, that is an experience. He gets the knowledge. So we can share a technique. I can give you a transmission. If you want a transmission, we can give you a transmission also. And you will feel your body light and energy moving through your body. If you are open, drop your mind and open your heart and I'll give you a technique. Om. Anandam Ananda Karaprasannam Jnana